A disaffected subordinate gets drunk, makes a run at the captain with a club, and John Paul just pulls his cutlass out and runs the guy straight through, just right into the middle of him.
Was it one of those scenarios where like he just pulled his sword out and the guy just ran into it? I'm pretty sure the
guy just ran right into it. Yeah. I mean, that's how I imagined it.
Hello and welcome back to The Buck Starts Here, the podcast that usually digs deep into juicy stories, wild twists, and power plays of our president's past. But since Eric is still working on his Magnus Opus to Lincoln, we decided to invite Ray back to talk about another piratey founding father, John Paul Jones. But before we do that, let's hear a quick word from one of our sponsors. We actually have a new sponsor that we get to hear from. So let's hear from TJ.
Every president made some choices. Some aged well, some did not. Jackson. What's always a good choice is getting a second quote when shopping for a mortgage. If you're making a big housing decision, buying, refinancing, or just trying to understand your options, let me, TJ Cuevisto, help you sort through the details before you put your John Hancock on anything. You can email me at tj.cuevisto@fairwaymc.com, and if that's too hard to spell, just call or text me 612-417-7767.
TJ Cuevisto, NMLS number 2836158, Fairway Home Mortgage, NMLS number 2289.
Now, let's see what lessons history will teach us today.
TJ's got a rap song.
Oh, you've been hearing those? So there's a guy named Raffy out here in Mesa that has like billboards everywhere, and he's got this song that plays on the radio. It's just call Raffy, call Raffy, and then the phone number. I don't know why this guy's got so much stuff out here.
I still remember the telephone number of the window replacement company in Garfield Heights when I was a kid. Garfield 12323. It was like the most annoying jingle. And like every once in a while, someone will be like Garfield Heights, and I'll be like Garfield 12323. Everybody hits the floor laughing. That's what's going to happen to Raffy.
It is such an earworm. You'd be surprised. So apologize to everybody that's been hearing that. Anyway, John Paul Jones. You mentioned, are we going to get some extra pirate lingo too out of this one? I didn't see that in your notes anywhere.
I didn't have any extra pirate lingo. There were a few things that, for one reason or another, I have heard reused colloquially. For example, I have not yet begun to fight. I did not know that came from him. Actually couldn't have told you where it came from, although I've heard it a number of times. But no, I didn't dig too deeply into his letters, just that one. We'll talk about that later.
Which one? Okay. Well, why don't we just start from the beginning then? What do we know about his upbringing?
Well, John Paul, not Jones yet.
Right.
It's like a Darth Maul situation. Was Scottish, and his dad was a landscaper, gardener. I think landscape architect is probably closer in this time. This would have been the kind of stuff that Jefferson was doing, designing big landscaped areas and gardens and outbuildings and stuff like that. So this is aristocratic adjacent, but also you're still the hired help. So they live on the estate. And he doesn't want anything to do with this. He's got siblings who go into the family trade. He does not. Instead, at 13, he becomes an apprentice merchant marine and does that for 4 years, which is pretty wild. By the time he's 17, he's working on a slave ship and he hates it. He develops a disdain for the trade.
That's actually the second quote I saw.
And that is the second quote. Yeah. Yep. That I did not know it is. He actually refers to the slave business as the Abominable Trade, which is a quote we've all heard. And
I didn't know that was him.
I did not know that was him. In fact, I did not know anything about America's Pirate, which is apparently what he is called. So he
Gremlin
quits.
is close.
Yeah. So he's on the slave trading ship, and he quits. He's just disgusted with the trade. Doesn't want to do anything. So he's halfway. He's gone from England to Jamaica, and he's like, I'm out. And decides not to make the return trip with his current commission. So he gets on a boat, oddly enough, called the John. And he's listed technically as a passenger, although it seemed to me more like Captain McAdams of the brig, the John, was giving him a favor. Like, I'll take this fellow sailor back to his home port.
Right.
So they hop off out of Jamaica, and I guess he's planning on trying to find a new gig when he gets back to England. But the trip is plagued with yellow fever. It kills the captain, then it kills the first mate. And there's some serious gatekeeping in the ranks of the British Merchant Marine. The aristocrats don't want the common sailors to know how to navigate. So the two guys who know how to navigate die.
That's how he ended up getting command.
They're sitting around and they're like, what in the hell are we going to do? And John Paul is like, I know how to navigate.
I can do it. Yeah.
So he's bitter his whole life on account that he's not an aristocrat. He can't break into any of these. It's not like it is now. You can't break into that moneyed class. You either are or you aren't. And
no, this is the same thing that George Washington was disillusioned with, and why he left the British
Army. There's a lot of this where, and it seems to be, for the most part, the British Navy or the British Merchant Marine are one of the few places where you can start out as nothing and work your way up. So men seeking meritocracy seem to gravitate to these, and women too, who are disguised, of course, as men occasionally. But
it's like the whole basis of the Hornblower series.
It is exactly the whole basis of the Hornblower series. One of my favorites.
Oh yeah, those are great books.
So he gets the John home, and the owner is just like totally impressed. The owner's like, this 20-year-old guy, like, great.
I lost my captain and his mate, so why not?
he says you can now be the captain of the brig, the John, and John Paul is thrilled because now he thinks this is great. I've got my own command. I'm the master of the ship. I can slide into the aristocracy, little sneak in on the sly. So he does this fairly successfully, but eventually there's a bit of a mutiny.
A bit of a mutiny. Yeah, this is a common theme.
It's a common theme. We find mutiny actually is a through line in the life of John Paul Jones. So there's a mutiny. Basically, this first mutiny boils down to almost nothing. There's a fella named Mungo Maxwell. Best name of the podcast today, Mungo Maxwell. And Mungo is from an aristocratic family. He's a carpenter. And he don't like being bossed around by this nobody. And so he tries to start a mutiny, and it doesn't pop off the way he wants it to. A lot of the other guys are like not really interested in participating. And he receives 12 lashes, and he's left in Jamaica to heal up.
Yep.
So it's kind of an interesting...
Actually, he got off pretty light if he was really trying to mutiny. If all he got was a few lashes and then
you have to remember this is a young captain. It's, maybe he's smart. It isn't like John Paul isn't completely with the program, conniving even. So, he's obviously, from my perspective, trying to balance how this goes. But Mungo gets off the ship and just starts telling everybody that it's the worst captain in the world. Captain John tried to kill me. It's a whole thing. Now, maybe you know this. I know you did a little bit more on this one than I did.
This is where my notes pick up.
I don't know how Mungo Maxwell's family found out about this.
That is actually
so why don't you tell us, because his
here.
Aristocratic family finds out and they're pissed.
Let's go back just real quick first to the actual incident. Mungo, I should say. I want to use his first name because why else?
Absolutely.
How many times do I get to use that? Mungo, he did report the lashings to the authorities, the Vice Admiralty authorities in Tobago when he was dropped off there. A judge examined Maxwell. He reported the stripe marks to the shoulders, but he considered nothing dangerous or potentially even fatal. He got transferred to the Barcelona packet shortly after that. The master of that ship swore in a testimony or affidavit that Maxwell appeared healthy and worked for several days before developing a fever and dying during the passage from Tobago to Antigua. When the John got back to Scotland, Maxwell's father, that's when he accused Paul of fatally beating his son. Paul got arrested in Kingsbrook, right? And then released on bail to answer indictments within 6 months. So it was like a 6-month trial that he had to like just hang around with.
Yeah,
but the question is, how did he find out? Nobody really knows.
Did he get a letter? Did one of the other sailors report back to the family? Like,
it was basically on the November 3rd, like he went to the town the following day after the ship had returned, expecting to visit his son. And then that's where he learned that he had died. So it must have been, it was news from the boat itself.
Yeah, it must have just been hearsay. Okay, I couldn't. It
was his boat.
Out.
I mean, yeah. Okay. So he actually submitted all of this stuff before he even had like any evidence. So
yeah, it's pretty crazy. There was no evidence. So they tell John Paul
all the evidence was against the other way. Like this should have. Like, but for 6 months he was left like just waiting, like with all this stuff in limbo.
But in England, the court system is different. You're not considered innocent. In the beginning, you're considered guilty in the beginning, and it's on you to gather your evidence. So I can only assume that this was a civilian court.
He had plenty of evidence on his side.
He sailed all the way back to Tobago to gather his evidence. He got testimony and letters.
Testimonies from the physician that initially like responded to the first complaints in Tobago. That person like swore up and down. The people that applied or employed him on the next ship like said like, no, this guy showed up and was fine and good health. Like obviously they're not physicians, but this guy had been beaten to the point where he was going to die. It's obvious that was not the case based on the testimony that he was able to obtain. This was the missing evidence concerning the death itself. So this is the timeline that they submitted. Maxwell boarded the Barcelona packet around mid-June of 1770, appeared healthy, worked as a carpenter for several days, developed a fever, then died 4 or 5 days afterwards while sailing towards Antigua. He made no complaint during that time to Eastman about mistreatment by Paul, and the company believed that the illness to be his cause of death.
So John Paul sticks it out. He gets himself a new commission. It's a bigger shipping vessel called the Betsy.
Is this? There's another. Okay,
this is the second.
Okay.
The
I thought there was
mutiny,
2. I was like, wait a minute.
The second mutiny happens on the Betsy.
All right.
So there's. It's rough going. So 1773, it's a bad year. There's some kind of a delay, and a bunch of the goods spoil on the Betsy. The captain is stuck making a decision. Do I try to offload what's left and take a loss or try to break even? Remember, they pay the crew only out of the profits. So if there's no profit after the crew's been fed and drunked, of course, let's not forget our rum. So
that's why I think mutiny was a lot more common. Like if you were an incompetent captain,
you were done, man. Get off, out.
Basically, but then what happens was you have to murder that guy because you can't leave a survivor to tell what you did.
You do.
You just need like,
you do have to murder that guy.
First mate is now in charge. We don't know what happened.
So John decides he's going to offload what he can, salvage as much of the process as possible, and he's going to have the money to pay the sailors, but the ship needs repairs. So he floats their paychecks to get the ship repaired, promises them, when we get back to England, I will get you. You'll get paid. Because this is you're loaning the company the money to fix the ship, right? And this should be okay. How are they going to spend their money at sea anyways? But they're riotous.
They would rather, I'm sure most of them would rather just leave that ship, take their money, and go find another one.
They would rather die with full pockets than go back to England and wait for their money. So
I would too. I'd rather go find another ship to go work on.
A disaffected subordinate gets drunk, makes a run at the captain with a club, and John Paul just pulls his cutlass out and runs the guy straight through, just right into the middle of him.
Was it one of those scenarios where like he just pulled his sword out and the guy just ran into it? I'm pretty sure the guy
just ran right into it. Yeah. I mean, that's how I imagined it. Yeah. Man with a club, the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely self-defense. All of the other sailors are like, self-defense. I'd have done the same thing. I get it. But he's done. It's too much. It's too much bad press. He doesn't want to defend another murder charge.
And a second mutiny.
All of the money he has accumulated now, and all of the prestige he's worked his way up to in England, in the United Kingdom, is gone. He leaves everything. He shows up at his brother's house in America, destitute. Nothing. Adds Jones to the end of his name because it's just the most common name he can think of. And
is that the reason why? I think there's a lot of
that is
question
exactly
about
the reason why.
Because I think there's another like theory out there that it was like an homage to some other Jones that he served with or worked with, or it could have even been like a ship that he was just on.
He doesn't want to be known as John Paul anymore. And he
Yeah.
spends the next 3 years sleeping on a straw mat in a tavern. Like, this is depression. And I think this is important. This is where...
But that's... Okay, hang on. Wait a second. If you're trying to disguise yourself, it seems like that you could go better lengths of changing your name rather than just adding a third name to it. Like, that's like Clark Kent levels of...
News didn't travel back then the way it does now.
I'm not John Paul. I'm John Paul Jones.
Duh.
Duh.
So he spends a lot of time drinking in this tavern and doing American new aristocratic things, like not much, writing poetry and studying philosophy. He meets Phillis Wheatley at a Masonic lodge. She's the famous slave poet. And the two of them become friends, lifelong friends.
There's another incident.
I was unable to confirm why, but other than that, just that men and women were not friends back then unless they were sleeping together, that there may have been some Gouverneur Morris kind of action going on there, but there's no evidence of that. So
I swear I had a note about him joining the Masonic League like during this. It was like right around the time when
he's
the
hanging around
trial
the
was
Masonic
happening.
Lodge.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which actually, I think that was that was why it was of note, because obviously that means that it hadn't completely tarnished his reputation at that point if people were still willing to consort with him.
Well, his brother had been here for a while.
Yeah.
And his brother was in good standing. He was friends with Phillis. She had to be, she was highly respected. So somehow through these relationships that he begins forming, these social relationships, he gets a big chance to go to Philadelphia and get a revolutionary ship.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a problem with the way they're running stuff. Continental Congress, they're not attracting a lot of experienced commanders to the fledgling Navy.
That is
because
a way
they're doing two things, and the two things are counterproductive. The first thing they're doing is they're trying to form a revolutionary Navy. They are Continental Navy. They're commissioning ships. They're converting
merchant ships
and anything that can carry cannon. And they're also weirdly offering letters of marque. So the good captains, the good sailors are like, I'll roll the dice on winning the lottery. I'll bag some British ships and steal some shit, and bada boom, bada bing.
Yeah.
So all of the really good sailors are pirating on these letters of marque from the Continental Congress. So they've got an admiral or a captain, Essex Hopkins, and he's the commander of our first warship, the Alfred. He's it. That guy is our Navy at the moment. And so John Paul Jones serves directly under Hopkins, and he is actually the first guy to raise the Grand Union flag. So this is really cool. It's a compromise flag. Flag design is really interesting. If you know a little bit about how people make design decisions and what people who do things like that are trying to communicate visually. It's got the British flag in the place where our stars are. And then it has our 13 stripes. So sort of like saying, we are our own thing, but we're somehow some fealty to England, almost like they're saying, like, we're open to compromise. We're open to returning, at least in some fashion. And there's a couple times that flags become, that flags are interesting in this story. So that's one that I thought was
snake flag.
Yeah, it was one that I thought was kind of fun. So
we used to have the snake flag on our ship when I was on our boat, I should say.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I remember we called it the snake flag because we didn't know the history really behind it. It's like, what is this? Why do we have this weird snake flag on the back of our ship?
No one was curious. Well, and at the time,
but now I was.
Right, but the visual language that people spoke at the time, that was so obvious to people. So it was kind of neat. So this would have been really obvious to everyone that something's going on with these boats. These are not British Navy boats, but they're somehow allied with that, or in that, I don't know. It's almost like the colonies want to be commonwealths instead of colonies at the beginning. And I think that's an interesting approach, to change your flag, but not too much.
Right.
So John Paul Jones is a pretty good captain. He gets the crew of the Alfred into shape. He's doing battle drills with them. Of course, they don't have any cannonballs or any powder, so they're just pretending. There's no money for supplies, but they're drilling.
Got one chance. He did get one chance to to go out and show his stuff. I think it was when there was a mission to sail the ship through some really shallow reefs or something, and nobody else would volunteer to do it except for him. Yeah. He's the one who stepped up and said, "I'll do it," and had success. And I think that was the one success of the mission.
Pretty exciting. That whole time. It was very exciting to get to see that. But they've got no money. They've got nothing. So Essex Hopkins, it seems like he might have also kind of wanted to be a pirate, decides that what we should do is sail down to New Providence and rob it blind. They're going to bring a mishmash of militia. They're going to hit the shore. They're going to send these guys down into New Providence. They're going to steal everything. And then they're going to have armaments. It's going to be great. We're going to take the powder. Yeah. We're going to take the guns. So this mishmash of militia that are just guys in, their workaday clothes. These are the first Marines.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome. I had no idea.
Birth of the Marine Corps right there.
Birth of the Marine Corps. Indeed. So, it's John Paul Jones who suggests the beginning of Marine Corps behavior. Just fascinating. My grandfather was a Marine. There's a lot of history in our family. John Paul Jones suggests,
a Marine.
Instead of fighting it out in the harbor where we could get sunk, let's go around the island. We'll drop the Marines off and just let them go over land. Right. And just let them do whatever. So the Marines go in, they take everything off the British. They kidnap the governor, who later complains to the Continental government that the Marines have drank all the liquor in his mansion.
That sounds like Marine behavior.
I want to make it clear that apparently once a Marine, always a Marine goes all the way back to the beginning. I was unable to find any record if they also ate his crayons, but not sorry for that one. I thought that was great, but they did their job. They went in, they took the shit, they stole the governor, off they went. And as a reward, John Paul Jones gets his own sloop. So they put him on the Providence, which is one of these converted.
That's a 12-gun, 70-man ship. I think I looked up. It's pretty small.
It's pretty small,
but it's fast.
It's small but fast. And he's willing to leverage that because he wants to do more guerrilla warfare.
Oh, I think that was the third quote I saw from him was I will not take part. I'm going to paraphrase it, but I don't want a ship that's not fast because I intend to sail it into harm's way.
Yeah, I need a fast ship because where I'm going is going to be dangerous or something. Yeah, it's very eloquent the way he says it.
Right. That's probably why he had a lot of mutiny too, though. So to get to Providence.
So the Solebay is interesting. He's a pirate who can't be fooled, it seems.
Right. Yes.
You can't hustle a hustler.
Okay, so the Continental Providence had been chased for about 4 hours by the much larger British frigate. This is the Solebay. According to Jones's report, it fired during the pursuit without initially displaying her nationality. When Jones had finally raised the American colors and returned fire, the British ship also hoisted American colors, then fired their guns to leeward, which is supposed to be a friendly signal. So the Solebay was actually trying to pretend to be an American or friendly vessel,
trying to
presumably hoping to trick them into, come over here, let us come up.
Oh, little Red Riding Hood, come here.
Jones did not believe the signal, and he had actually prepared an escape maneuver. He turned really abruptly across the Solebay's path, knowing that his ship was going to be faster, and was able to basically set every available sail and get moving before the surprised British ship could retrim their sails and get their broadsides effectively turned and pointed to fire. According to Jones, he reported that the Solebay was within pistol shot but failed to hit his ship. And then we talk about the Milford, and this is the one I think you like because of the ending of it.
I love this. It's a Marines ending.
September 20th, 1776, it being as an encounter between Sable Island and mainland Nova Scotia. In a letter, he said that he had once tested the frigate's speed and had determined that the Providence was faster, so he deliberately reduced sail. His words were, quote, "I shortened sail to give him a wild goose chase and tempt him to throw away powder and shot." So for the next 8 hours, he is just dangling the Milford behind them, like just keeping them in range, but like out of range, just trying to get them to use up as much of their cannon shot as they could and powder.
And the British are just shooting and shooting and shooting. And you can imagine
more than twice the proper distance, according to Jones, what he wrote. And that I think annoyed him. That was probably what pissed him off the most. Because when Milford turned to deliver like another, like one of the last full-on broadsides, that's when Jones ordered his Marine officer to answer with a one musket shot, because in his words, the British firing excited my contempt so much.
I thought it was
it was a middle finger. It really was
a middle finger, and it's so cheeky, and it's so, I mean, it's not funny. People's lives are at stake. Like, this is a terrible.
I mean, they're double the range. I mean, they're firing, but I mean, it's got to be really, yeah.
Generally speaking, like, this is a terrible way to die. These guys die all the time. And naval warfare at this time, not that it's probably not any better now, but my goodness. But I find it so funny that, like, is a British ship, and she's like, boom, 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 boom. And then up pulls the Americans, and one Marine is like,
I like to just think of John Paul, like, looking through his eye spice as the guy, like, watching him, and he's just.
It's so good. It's so good. So this is a really exciting portion of his career. He captures 16 ships. A number of them are these British frigates. There's a whole bunch of fishing boats that he grabs, some merchant vessels. Some of these are like they're used for conversions to fighting ships. Sometimes they're used to trade. Sometimes they're shipping. So yeah, there were 8 that were converted.
8 set to prize. Yeah, 3 returned to port fishermen, and I think he destroyed 5 of them just because they were garbage.
And I was going to say at least a few of them, they get on and decide they don't like the ship very much, so they just set it on fire and sink it.
According to my notes, it says that he destroyed about $1 million worth of property during this little run. Yeah. This is like a 6-week run too. This is a 6-week cruise.
So this is the other problem. They're doing guerrilla warfare business, and you can't take everything. The Providence is not big. They don't have enough crew to turn themselves into their own navy. So whatever they can't take, at least it's not going to go back to the British. Don't let the resources fall into the hands of the enemy. And these guys they're basically pyromaniacs. It's really funny.
Oh God, they want to shut everything on fire.
They burn everything. And
they're chaos goblins.
They are chaos goblins. They're fantastic.
Yes.
Our founding fathers. What a great trip.
These are the people you need to win a war, though. These are the guys you just go let loose, like on the British coastline. And so there's something,
there's something to be said about this. I know that John Paul Jones felt aggrieved his entire life for not getting the appropriate promotions and accolades and moving into, but he is the type of guy, I don't want him at a desk telling people where to go and what to do. I want the crazy people out there doing the crazy people stuff, right? So is Congress doing this on purpose? He's just so useful where he's at that.
I think the problem with it, I think he needs to be another level up. I think he needs to be in charge of more strategy and less in charge of people. I think the more you put him in charge of the rank and file,
not great with people.
Less effective he's going to be.
Not great with people. But the pirate behavior does get him another promotion. And Congress gives him the Alfred. So now he's got kind of a little fleet. He's got the Alfred, he's got the Providence, he's got 5 or 6 of these fishing vessels. The Nova Scotians have just joined. They're like, oh, we're in. I don't know what the deal was with them. I didn't read any of their letters. I don't really know how
did he recruit a bunch of them?
He did. They liked him. They were like, we'll go a pirating with you. Maybe they didn't like the British.
I think it's more of that.
You know?
Yeah. Well, they had a bunch of British troops stationed there. What do you think they were doing?
Doing all kinds of no good stuff. Then he's shorthanded, so the Nova Scotians are great because Congress is still issuing letters of marque. So the Nova Scotia guys kind of hop on, and Congress asked them to go liberate some American prisoners from a coal mine in Nova Scotia that the British are running. Unfortunately, they get there, and the British and the Americans have joined forces. The Americans are like, we're just going to stay and be British again. And so,
so they were just working for him.
Their mission fails in the sense that there were no prisoners to rescue. They weren't being held prisoner. But while he's out there,
does that mean that he scorched the earth then?
Yeah, he doesn't do anything to the coal mine.
Okay.
It seems like he just leaves that unmolested. I'm not sure why.
He probably needed the coal to set things on fire.
Super into he's not super into bothering Nova Scotia generally.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you guys want to stay? I mean, we came to rescue you, but all right. So
that's another kind of common theme with him too. Is when whenever he seems to cross the line, like he always seems to.
Hey, sorry,
I made a mistake. Hang on, let me try to rectify this.
Yeah. He has done his run in Nova Scotia. He's failed in the sense that he doesn't rescue the prisoners, but he's done well in the sense that he's got some more boats along with him, and he's recruited some Nova Scotians to sail those boats, which is great.
Yeah.
He gets back and he's wants to go talk to Continental Congress.
So Continental Congress during this time, 2 days after he gets back, basically. So he gets back October 8th from that incredibly successful raid. It's a 6-month campaign, which he captures all those ships and everything. Congress 2 days later puts out an official ranking of all of the captains.
There's 18 captains.
No, there's 24 on the list.
Oh, there's 24. Okay.
JPJ is ranked number 18 on that list. And he did not have a problem with 4 of the names ahead of him. 4 of the names ahead of him were senior to him. In fact, when he was the most senior lieutenant, there was 4 captains above him in the structure. So it made sense that those guys would stay above him seniority wise. But there's 13 newcomers that jumped him, that leapfrogged him. And if you look at, I've got the list of their accolades. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names that you can make a case for that were above him. The rest of them they did nothing. There's several names on this list that didn't even have a ship yet. They were just given they were overseeing the construction of their frigates.
So here's what happens. The United States starts out with 21 boats. They commission a number, they convert a number, but our Continental Navy starts out with 21. Only 3 or 4 of them ever sail. 18 of them are captured by the British. The joke becomes that the Continental shipyards are building boats for the British Navy because that's where they're going.
Right.
So you got this guy who's out here. He's kicking ass at chewing bubblegum, and he's bringing home boats to replace these that are being destroyed and stolen. And some of these captains, these guys that were supposedly so great, 3 of them managed to run their vessels aground on their maiden pullout from the port. Didn't even make it. It's just hit shoals on the way out. Okay.
Okay.
Now,
Hang on
I understand that some of this is going to be like Roanoke, where it's really dangerous when you first get out. But holy crap, man!
That's ridiculous.
So it's offensive to me that the guy who's doing all the work he gets demoted even.
Yeah, he loses a lot of seniority because of this.
He loses the Alfred.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. Now for the counter argument.
Go ahead.
He got there 2 days before this ranking was compiled. The news of his exploits probably hadn't even reached the Continental Congress yet at this point. They probably knew that he had captured a ship here or there, but to weigh all of these accomplishments against, looking at now with hindsight, knowing that he'd done all this stuff 6 weeks prior.
Captured a ship here or there compared to guys who haven't even sailed a boat.
Well, I'm saying you can justify a few of the names. I'm not saying you can justify all of them.
It's hard to blame him. It's hard to blame him for his animosity. But yes, let's hear who these guys are.
John Manley, John Barry, and Nicholas Biddle, I think, have the strongest, most distinguished records of the names on this list.
John Barry, I know.
John Barry was the commander of the Lexington. He broke through the British blockade on April 7th, captured the armed tender Edward after a fight of about an hour and 20 minutes. Nicholas Biddle was an experienced mariner, previously commanded the Pennsylvania galley Franklin. He was a captain of Andrew Doria and participated in the New Providence expedition and had action with the HMS Glasgow. Later cruises, he captured several British merchant transport vessels, including the Oxford Crawford. Yeah, he was the commander of the 32-gun frigate Randolph, though that was not operational at the time of the rankings. He was probably one of the more experienced ones. And then John Manley was the commander of Washington's schooner Lee. He, in 1775, captured the transport Nancy. That was the one. Okay, that yielded about 2,000 muskets, 31 tons of musket balls, thousands of cannon shot fuses,
so these
hundreds of thousands of flint, large brass motors.
These are all acceptable ahead of our boy.
Yes.
Okay.
Now let's talk about some of the other ones.
And the other 14?
Thomas Brittle, John Hodge, no meaningful combat or prize record before August 10th. Both were attached to unfinished New York frigates and had not yet begun to go into service. Then you have
They probably went into
Hector
service in
McNeil,
the British Navy.
Thomas Thompson, Thomas Reed, Charles Alexander, William Halleck, Hoisted Hacker, Isaiah Robinson, all had varying combinations of merchant sea experience, state Navy command, construction work, expedition service, or individual captures, but nothing that matched Jones's combination of command, prizes, raids, and escapes. But again, how much of that did the Continental Congress actually know? I think that's where it's like, maybe if they had made that list like 2 weeks later, he might have been a little higher.
Part of the problem, I agree, is the flow of information. However, it is well known among everybody who knows this guy, even by this time, this early in his career, that he is obsequious in a way that many find off-putting. He is constantly looking for local acclaim. He's telling everybody everything he's doing. And that's going to come back to us later as well. He's a prolific self-promoter. Gouverneur Morris accuses him of constantly seeking any local accolades available. Later, when he writes a letter that could be interpreted as somewhat rakish and romantically overtoned, he doesn't just send it to the lady. He sends it to 5 or 6 copies to 5 or 6 of his friends, including notorious womanizer Benjamin Franklin. So the guy speaks a lot upon his own behalf. So while I understand the news of his exploits,
who is going to? Nobody
else was going to speak up for him, so he spoke up for himself. I'm not saying that in his case it's a bad trait. He's a braggart, but it's certainly all true.
Right.
So,
but I can see how that'd be off-putting too.
Well, he's pretty mad. He loses the Alfred after all of that, and his little flotilla, all of that's gone. I think the Nova Scotians take their boats and go home. They're like, whatever, we're going home.
This is a lot of fleets.
Yeah. So he does lose a lot of fleets. He does do a pretty amazing, the Malesh is pretty amazing. He hauls back out of Boston pretty quick after he gets demoted. And I guess he's on the Ranger at this point. And the Ranger's another small, fast boat. It's also been refitted from merchant use. And I don't know what its gun complement is, but by this time, his plan is to go everywhere he can with Marines. So he's got Marines on board.
he's all in.
He's all in on the Marine plan. He likes this. So they run into the HMS Milish. I don't know how they would pronounce it. So he pulls up alongside, runs it down, pulls up alongside. The Marines board the ship. I don't know. They rope across, jump. I don't know how they
grappling hooks. Grappling hooks.
Probably grappling hooks. Very cool. They take everything because it's all they do is steal, which is awesome. They take 10,000 winter uniforms out of this ship. Mm-hmm. And those uniforms go to Valley Forge.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right.
So this is an awesome, and I did check, and in the famous Washington Crossing the Delaware painting that we have oft maligned for its lack of historical accuracy.
Is it? Oh, no way.
They are wearing the correct uniforms.
Those
are the uniforms that were stolen from the Malesh. Yeah, so
we got to put that image up here.
This is really cool. These guys were wintered up in when they crossed the Delaware with Washington. That's why so many of them are wearing the British coats in the painting, which I guess we had talked about. Did they just not know what colors we wore or what was going on there?
No, it turns out he did more research than we did.
A little bit more research there. And shame on me for not knowing about America's pirate. So I do think it's important to note that everything that they steal from the British is getting repurposed here. So all of these guys are heroes. Even if they only took one ship, at least they took something. So it's hard for me to malign the other guys on the list. They all probably did stuff that you and I might not be willing to do. So he takes the Alfred, or loses the Alfred, gets the Ranger, gets the uniforms, and then for one reason or another, Continental Congress is like, go to France with this little boat, the Ranger. There's a French fella who wants to give you a bigger frigate with a bunch of guns. So get over there to France. You're going to get this new boat. And recruitment is up slightly, so this is important. Continental Congress creates a hybrid privateer/enlistment scheme where if you enlist in the regular Navy, you do get to keep a portion of the spoils if you capture anything.
You can get prizes.
You get some prizes. You don't get all the prizes. You got to give some to the back, to the war effort.
Right.
So enlistment is up a little bit. And the crew is quite thrilled on their way to France when they encounter a British supply convoy.
Mm-hmm.
It is being escorted by the Invincible, which is a 74 cannon warship. They're in the Ranger. So they can't turn back and escape because they chased this thing down. So they have to make a decision. What are we going to do? We can't fight this ship. This is a wonderful pirate maneuver. John Paul Jones pulls down all the flags.
Oh, yes, this one. Yes,
gets in line with the merchant ships, sails with them all day. And then when it gets dark, they just drop sail, everybody goes ahead without them. And they make a clean getaway. No treasure, no prizes, but they escape with their asses. And that sometimes is the best prize.
That would have been terrifying coming up on a 74-gun frigate. And you're like, oh, we can't leave now because there's a whole convoy here looking after us. So, that was crazy quick thinking.
Let's get in. It's like in the Wizard of Oz when they bonk the Wookiees, the Winkies on the heads and they put the hats on and they get in line and march up to the castle. That's exactly what they do. I love it. It's daring, high seas adventure, So it takes until December.
I swear that's
to get to
a scene from the Black Pearl movies.
Probably. I would imagine. I'm starting to realize that some of this guy's exploits we have seen played out in the theater over and over again.
Oh God. Okay. Did you see about this is just a little bit after that, the 24th of April, he fought the British sloop of war Drake, an equal force and larger crew to a standstill in an hour and 5 minutes. They killed 42 and wounded more than a fifth of her crew. The Ranger lost 2 men and 6 were wounded.
They're insane. The whole group of them are insane.
Yeah.
They're all insane.
Ray, I think we're getting a little bit late in today's episode, so we'll put a pin on it today, but join us next week as we finish John Paul Jones's ill-fated climb to the top. Hopefully we're done with the mutiny, but we'll see.
Could always have more mutiny in my life.